My name is Lorette McWilliams, and I'm the moderator for today's web conference. Hello from a snowy Cambridge. The topic of today's web conference is What's New for Parent U? Our web conference will address some new resources and ideas, particularly for use in parent university type programs, but also for use in other kinds of family engagement work, as these resources are applicable to other settings and transferable to a variety of roles. So first, a little background about the Parent University Network, part of the FIND network within Harvard Family Research Project, housed at Harvard University's Graduate School of Education. Our counting has revealed over 100 parent university-like organizations in the country. That is, organizations that are generally sponsored by schools, that develop family capacity, usually through trainings and courses, with the goal of supporting child development and learning. What we know from looking at our Parent University Network membership is that our members come from varied professional backgrounds and have a variety of professional responsibilities, areas of expertise, and experiences. We also know that not all parent universities are called universities. Some are academies, and some members are community-based. Some members are researchers or practitioners. So we are a diverse group. In the field of family engagement, parent leadership, and capacity building, 40 years of research contributes to an evolving understanding about family engagement in children's learning. The principles that we want to highlight and be mindful of are a recognition that families are a child's first and most important teacher, that all families want their children to succeed, and that all families should have the opportunity to gain the knowledge, skills, and confidence to promote their children's learning and development. "40 years of research also contributes to an expanded definition and conceptualization of family engagement. That is, family engagement is a shared responsibility across settings, including after school, summertime, in community organizations like libraries, museums, faith-based organizations, and in digital settings, wherever children learn. And it is from cradle to career, continuous, and over time. By building family capacity, such as in parent university programs and offerings, families develop the tools, confidence, social connections, and skills to advocate for their child and support their learning and development. So with that in mind, let me introduce today's panelists. Delisa Crane is the administrator for the Washoe County School District Department of Family School Partnerships and has worked in family engagement for more than a decade. Delisa holds a bachelor's degree in public relations and a master's degree in elementary education. Delisa served as the former PERC director for the state of Nevada and holds a Nevada teaching credential. Maria Fernandez is the Washoe County School District Parent University Coordinator. Maria holds a bachelor's degree in business and a master's degree in equity and diversity in educational settings. Maria has been in her current role for the last 5 years, working with thousands of families in the district, as well as community partners to grow WCSD Parent University from the ground up. Therese Moore is presently in her 12th year as Federal Way School District's Family and Community Partnership Director. She has helped her district and other district leaders develop a variety of tools and resources co-created with families and staff to promote effective partnerships that enhance student success. Her district was one of 6 featured in a policy brief by the National PTA and Harvard Family Research Project on building systemic family engagement. Margaret Kask is a senior research analyst at Harvard Family Research Project, where she has been working in various capacities since 2000. Margaret develops materials to prepare educators for family engagement, assists in efforts to evaluate family engagement, and contributes to the development of resources for the Office of Head Start's National Center on Parent, Family, and Community Engagement. She has co-edited and authored a variety of reports and articles. Maggie joins us from New Jersey. For our next segment, each panelist will have about 8 minutes to share and talk about a resource for use in family engagement work. All of the resources shared today will be available by links provided later on in the presentation. First, we will have Delisa Crane and Maria Fernandez from Washoe County School District in Reno, Nevada, tell us about using educational apps in their Parent University program.
Hi, this is a little background from our Parent University. During the year 13-14, we served 3,175 families in different workshops. So we have core competencies, the kind of house all the classes that we offer, and help us categorize the workshops that are out there for families. So we have literacy, math, science and art, standards and data, navigating the system, and specialized programs where we target ELL, gifted and talented, and special ed families with different opportunities to learn and expand about the programs that the district has.
Welcome, Delisa and Maria. Thanks so much for joining us. So as you get started, one of our questions was, what are the steps that led you to using apps in Washoe County Parent University?
We have a long history of helping families access technology. We started with Infinite Campus Parent Portal, which is a system where families can check the attendance, grades, and assessment data. However, at that time, we heard from families that the literacy, computer literacy was not there for some of the populations. And so we host a focus group, and one of the things that came out was we need, for us to access Infinite Campus, we need to be able to understand how to use a computer. So we went ahead and built a computer class where families had the opportunity to understand how the computer works, how to create an email, and the purpose of creating an email was to have communication with teachers about how the progress of the kids. We also teach families how to use the website, like a Google engine, and how do they Google for tip sheets or apps that they're available and they're free for the kids, as well as sites where they can access through the school system, the Washoe County school system. There's some websites that are already paid through the district that kids can practice at home math or reading. From there, we also have an assessment class that has a component where parents log into a site where there's some ASVAC practice texts where they can take them and like really experience what kids are going to get to experience soon with ASVAC. So it's another way we do technology. And our last recent one is a teacher reached out to us and asking about helping her with find out what parents were interested on. And so we did host another meeting where we had the opportunity to have a focus group with parents from different backgrounds, and they had different computer literacy skills as well as navigating the system skills. And one of the most important topics that came up, again, it was using technology to support learning in the class, in the home, similar to what they do in the classroom. So going forward with the ELL teacher reaching to us, we did have a couple of brainstorming with the families, and once again, the topic was around technology and apps. We know that our kids now are more towards technology, and that really engaged them on the learning side. So parents wanted to know, how do we use technology smart and not only like wasting time in front of the screen. So they wanted it to have more learning hands-on experience through using technology. And that's when we started noticing that we really needed to address the apps to support learning at home. I'm going to pass it to Delisa, and she's going to go into more details on how do we, after those sessions, what was the end result and what families felt.
So luckily this all happened around the same time when Harvard Family Research Project sent out a tip sheet to use. I think this was around November, December. And so we thought this tip sheet was a great way to develop a new class for our parent university. And over our winter break, we did some of our own research and development with our own kids at home. We wanted to make sure that the apps that we chose really held kids' attention, because we know that young children these days are used to kind of navigating in and out of apps, and they sometimes their attention span might only. So we chose 3 of the apps. This was an hour class. We knew we didn't have a lot of time, and so we, Harvard, I might need some help with computer. Thank you. So we knew we didn't have a lot of time, and so we chose Khan Academy, and we also chose WordGirl and SIDS Science Fair. We know a lot of our families don't pay for cable television, and they watch our PBS station, and so this was something that kids could connect with and might hold their interest. Khan Academy we chose because we also knew some of the families that we were working with had older children in the household, so this covered a multitude of grade levels, and the content goes really deep across a lot of subjects. And so we loaded these onto a couple of our iPads. We modeled them for families and passed around the iPads in the class. We really wanted parents to touch and feel the apps, so that when they went home they'd be more likely to play with them. We also knew that even the fact that some of our families loaded them on their apps right there, we had all different levels of technology literacy in the classroom. We had some families that didn't have smartphones still, and so we knew that we actually needed a resource for them as well. So those are just a few of the lessons that we took away from the class. It sounds easy to take a tip sheet and just make a class happen, but logistically we learned a lot of things that we probably needed a hands-on device for every single parent in the classroom.
Oh, interesting, interesting. So I also have a question. If you could tell us a little bit about your community partnerships and WCSD Parent University.
Yeah, so for this particular class, in Maria's infinite wisdom, she reminded us that not all of our families have internet access at home or smartphones, and so we knew that. So we invited our Washoe County libraries, public libraries, to also come to the class with us and present some of their free resources for families, which was great. They have ebooks that could be downloaded, and they have online books that are read in 7 or 8 different languages, which really spoke to the families in the class, because I think in this particular class we had about 4 different languages, home languages. And they also shared a tutoring resource for older children. So it was a great partnership that really fit with this topic. You know, this is messy work, and we still have a lot of work to do to figure this out, and what are the next steps. We know one class is definitely not enough.
Thank you, Delisa and Maria. It sounds like a great experience and some wonderful resources. Thank you. We're now going to move to a short poll. Please take a minute and share with us, all audience members, one of your favorite resources to improve family engagement. It could be a book, a video, an author or tool, for example. Please type in your answer and hit the send button on the right. Just a moment. Great, I see some interesting answers and some new resources. Okay, we are now going to move to Maggie Capps of HFRP to tell us about a new resource that's available, the Create Your Own Case Toolkit.
Great. Thanks so much, Lorette, for having me take part in today's conversation, and welcome everyone. I'm going to talk for the next few minutes about a new professional development resource called the Create Your Own Case Toolkit. And very simply, the Create Your Own Case Toolkit is a resource designed to help teachers, librarians, after-school staff, anyone really who works with families, recreate their stories about family engagement work as cases. And it's also a resource that can be used by families to spark conversations and new ideas. And we developed this tool in collaboration with our local partner, the Community Engagement Team here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we developed this resource for three reasons. The first is we saw a real need in the field for a family engagement professional development resource that could get beyond the one-shot workshop. So we really wanted to design something that would lend itself to an ongoing professional development journey. So the next reason we created it was we really wanted to create a learning tool that's practitioner-driven. So when you read the cases in the toolkit that I'll describe for you shortly, you're reading cases that were written by actual family outreach workers here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Or when practitioners and families are writing and sharing their own cases, it really values and puts at the forefront their knowledge as a starting point. And finally, we wanted to develop a tool where learners could construct their own knowledge. And what's great about the tool is that learners have an opportunity to grapple with some real-world family engagement issues and come up with their own solutions. And we know that these types of activities lend themselves to better learning and the greater likelihood that they'll be adopted in new situations. So, maybe the best place to start is by answering the question of what is a case? So a case is basically a type of story that invites critical thinking and problem solving. But unlike stories, cases leave readers with a cliffhanger, right? So because there's no resolution, readers need to interpret the situation and come up with their own solutions. So the case abstract on your screen is part of the toolkit and was developed by Rabea Akhtar, a family engagement outreach worker in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the case that she writes is based on her real experience. And if you read it quickly, it says, a mother of an elementary school student who recently immigrated to the United States chooses not to attend her daughter's back-to-school night event. How can a family outreach worker encourage the mother to attend? So when you actually think about what you would do in a case like this, you're developing the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that are essential to working successfully with families and for families to work successfully with educators. And here at HFRP, we think about what those competencies are a lot, and I've listed some of them on the screen. And for over 20 years here at HFRP, we've been using the CASE method as an important way to help practitioners and families develop these competencies and work together. So basically, what the Create Your Own Case Toolkit is an offshoot of our case work. So what I want to do is I want to take you through a little walk through what the toolkit has to offer. So the toolkit is divided into three parts. The first part are 6 steps to follow with related exercises. The second component of the toolkit is a collection of family engagement cases. And the third component is a facilitator's guide. So let's take another deep look in and see what each of these components include. So here you can see the 6 steps that we recommend practitioners or families can use to write their own case. And the first step is reflecting on your experience. As a practitioner, your experience working with families, or as a family, your experience working with a variety of educators. And the second step is to identify a mismatch, identify a conflict, identify something where the perspective of somebody in your story did not exactly match onto the perspective of someone else. The third step is to choose people and information to include in your case. And then the fourth is to develop a case structure and outline. The fifth step is to draft and revise your case. And then the sixth is to share it with people. And this is just so each step comes with a little description of what the step entails and of some exercises that you can do to really hone in on what that step is actually trying to get you to do. So this is just an example of exercise 1-1, where you're thinking about a family, when you're thinking about potentially a family that you want to write about. So then the second part of the Create Your Own Case Toolkit is a collection of 8 cases. And just like Rebea's abstract you saw when I first introduced the toolkit, in this section of the toolkit, what you see are titles of cases and a little description of what the case is about. And what I really like about these cases, and remember, these were all written by family outreach workers who were doing work in the field, is that they all take on a similar structure. They all include a backstory, which is what a little piece of what you read, or what we read together earlier in the presentation, and then the full story. And the full story is an opportunity for the case writer to bring the story together and explain what they did in the situation. So in Rebea's case, what you find out is that the mother, it's not that the mother was not interested in going to back-to-school night, but in her home country of Bangladesh, the school system was just a lot different than it is here in the U.S. And the family outreach worker worked with her over a long period of time to see the benefit of participating and engaging in those types of events. And eventually the mother goes on to be a big leader in her school. So these cases are great, as I said, great pieces of work that you can use to sort of spark conversation among people in your trainings or in your workshops or in your communities. And then the final piece of the Create Your Own Case Toolkit is the Facilitator's Guide. And the Facilitator's Guide offers specific ideas for how the toolkit can be used in courses and workshops and seminars or in individual supervisory sessions. So I guess the next question really is how the toolkit can be used. And, you know, what I like to think about the toolkit like mix and match swimwear or suits. You can be inspired to take different portions of the toolkit as they suit your size or the shape of your work. So I think 3 ways that I really think the toolkit has been helpful for people in the field so far is in seminars and workshops with both practitioners and families. And the Facilitator's Guide offers a lot of different options for, you know, different ways that you can use the cases, the exercises, and the different steps to create a really meaningful workshop or seminar. The second way that the toolkit can be used is in learning communities or parent cafes. And more we've seen the popularity of bringing groups of practitioners, families, or practitioners and families together in an ongoing basis for learning opportunities. So the toolkit is a great resource for this type of work. For example, each meeting might focus on one step of the toolkit, and the end result is members of the community have their own case to share. Or you can use the case collection as just, you know, a way to have a discussion about particular topics together. And then you might just decide, you know, to use a few of the exercises as a way to bring your learning community or your parent cafes together. And then, another usage is in individual professional development, supervision, or consultation. A lot of the tools in here are really helpful in, having families and practitioners reflect on their work, which is a great tool you can use in a coaching situation.
Great, thanks, Maggie. I really like the mix and match metaphor that you used. I can envision a lot of uses for this resource. I was wondering, is there anything that you've learned in reading and listening to all the cases in the toolkit that might be helpful to practitioners? Maybe an overarching theme?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. I think one portion of this toolkit that really stands out, and in working with the Cambridge community engagement team, is that this notion that all families have strengths. We were very careful not to use the word problem, because problem insinuates that somebody potentially has a deficit, and it's that potentially situations that have tension within them are not problems, but they're rather just differences of perspectives, and really using this toolkit as a way to understand that. I think another thing that came out is that relationships take time. So relationships between families and educators or families and practitioners take time to build. But, I think when I think of, in talking with the outreach workers who developed their own cases, what I think was really neat is, one of the outreach workers said, going through this process really changed my mindset. When I have a situation with a family that I'm just having trouble getting my head around, I think of it like I'm supposed to be writing a case about it. So if I were to write a case, how would I write it? And, from a different perspective, how could I think about what's going on? And she said that really helps her sort of come up with unique solutions and ideas for moving forward with her family engagement work. So I think that's some really exciting feedback.
That is. So relationships take time and some perspective. Great. Thanks, Maggie. What a great resource. We are now going to move to Therese Moore who will tell us about some new resources, the Partnership 101 booklets. Hi, Therese.
Hello, Laurette, and thank you.
Welcome.
Well, overall, I wanted to make sure that I confirm that I agree with everything that the panelists have said. Maria, Delisa, Maggie, I agree that relationships take time, and I loved the perspective that Maria reminded us of as it pertains to our families that don't have access to the internet, may not have computers at home. And so what I found, in addition to the truth that some of our families don't have tools at home and the fact that relationships take time, I also found that what we as leaders in this work have to do is make sure that we take the time, as was already said, to listen, to pay attention to what our families are asking for, and remember that there are a variety of perspectives that can inform our thinking. And so what we did when we decided to promote this work of family engagement is we wanted to make sure that we offered tips for navigating the school system. We wanted to make sure that we helped parents become effective advocates. We also wanted to make sure that we offered parents ways to share their insights and ideas with the schools, as opposed to just us telling the parents what we thought as people who work in the system. We also decided that from our listening, we learned that parents wanted to support their students, and sometimes it didn't necessarily mean them coming to us. A lot of our families shared that they were excited about the fact that our work here in the Federal Way School District paid a lot of attention to the fact that sometimes, as Maggie and Delisa I think already shared, parents can't necessarily participate in at-school events or activities. So what we do is we also support teachers and staff who want to engage parents in ways that are a little different than just the come to the school type of event. So what I want to answer is questions about what we came up with after we did all of this learning and listening and found out all these things from our parents. we realized that we needed a tool and we needed a resource that we could use to help take what we learned from the parents and share it with other parents. So parents could share it with each other, and teachers could share it with each other, and teachers could share it with parents. And so several years ago, we got a group of parents together to help create the Parent Partnership Booklet. And after the success of the parent booklet, a few educators pulled me aside and they said, well, where's the guide for educators? So we discovered that the need should be based on the request from not just parents, but also from teachers. And they expressed an interest in learning more about the tools, the tips, and the strategies for engaging families in ways that were linked to learning. So after listening to the teachers and the parents, what we learned was common, and that was they all agreed that family engagement, student success is a shared responsibility. So the goal was to make it easier for teachers and families to literally have a chance to be on the same page about what it takes to engage students from both the student, family, and teacher perspective. So we created the Parent Partnership booklet first. Then we created the teacher handbook based on the questions that the teachers had about how do they engage families linked to learning, and also based on the desire we heard parents and teachers having around, well, how do we start the conversation? What do we do? So what we determined was that we wanted to make sure both the parent and the students were talking about the child with the focus on the child's strengths, their talents, their interests, and even their challenges. And so what we did is we created years ago this template, this document that said, let's start the conversation by encouraging parents to talk to their students. And when they talk to their students, let's include the fact that by talking to your student, you're creating your own involvement plan. So we titled our sheet, Create Your Own Involvement Plan, and we distributed it as a single document, and then the booklet came to be something that came based on what parents were saying they needed to know. So when they found out, hey, you know what, a conversation with my child actually guides the conversations that I need to have with my teacher. Having a conversation with your child about their strengths and their interests helps you to realize as a parent what you might be able to do to help your child. And then what we found was when the parents went and told the teachers what they knew about their child based on their conversation, the teachers were able to inform their thinking around, so how do I help this student based on what the parent has shared with me? So then what we found out was the parents had great conversations with their students. Then they were having conversations with the teachers. Oh, and then the teacher said, oh, okay, well, there's some questions that we may need to ask ourselves about what are we doing to use family engagement as a tool for learning and for instruction. So some of the questions that we came up with in support of the teachers and what they asked for were questions like, as I focus on engaging my student as a learner, what do I need to look for to help me determine when my lesson and my approach is effectively engaging the student? And these questions that you see on the slide, these are the questions that the teachers would ask themselves in their professional learning community discussions, by themselves, with their principal. And if you'll notice, the booklet doesn't just have questions for teachers to collaborate with themselves on. It's questions that they ask the parent. So the question to ask the parent on this particular page in the booklet is, what can you tell me about your son or daughter that may help me engage him or her as a learner? Oftentimes we forget to ask parents what they know about their students, thinking that as a teacher or as a director, I might know a little more than the parent. But what we found is parents know a lot more about engaging their students than we give them credit. So what we are hoping to do is have teachers collaborate amongst themselves and discuss, okay, what is it that I need to ask the parent so that I can better engage the student? And then on the next slide, you'll notice that we have tips and we have tools on each page of the teacher companion booklet. So the Parent Partnership Booklet is a guide to help parents have conversations with their child and then use those conversations to have better conversations with the teacher. The teacher booklet is a guide that actually works for teachers and principals who are having discussions around how do I improve my effort to engage families, with the link focused on student engagement. So another note that I want to bring up, in the booklet for the teachers, we paid special attention to include the transition piece. So I'm of the opinion that much of the research around early warning indicators focuses on the factors that contribute to failure. So I wanted to highlight transitions in the booklet so that our early learning leaders, our community partners, and our feeder school leaders would be included in the discussions early, so each stakeholder would be intentional about bringing those leaders to the table when discussing their solutions for prevention. So we're excited about all the research we're getting around early warning indicators and, read by third grade, and so many failures cause children to drop out. Well, we in our district wanted our family engagement work to speak about the value of engaging families before they get to kindergarten. So we encourage our teachers, our preschool partners, our family, friend, and neighbor, community members, our community partners. We encourage lots of people who are focused on student success to make sure that they're considering that there are other people besides the classroom teacher that can align with the goal and the effort to have conversations that promote student success.
Great. Thanks, Therese. This resource sounds fantastic to me. I was wondering, the involvement plan that the families create, is this something that's done every year?
The parents are provided the booklet at the school or in a mailing or through the workshops. And so our hope is, what we recommend the parents do is make copies, or we make copies for them, of the Create Your Own Involvement sheet where they fill it out, or someone fills it out with them, or they just have a oral discussion around the parents' thoughts. And yes, we make sure that we encourage them to do it for every child at every grade level yearly.
And is it something that is submitted and on file, or something that the parents can hold on to for reference?
The parents can hold on to it for reference. It's provided to every school. Parents can ask for it. They can print it off on the district website. The booklet is also available on each school website. So there are a variety of ways where parents can get a copy. They can ask for it, or we also have family liaisons that make it available to parents when they're new, when they do their welcome conversations with them.
It really does. It looks like a wonderful resource. Thanks, Therese, for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, this takes us to our next segment, the question and answer portion of our web conference. We will now take some time for our panelists to answer some questions, some of which may have been sent in by our audience, and some of the questions that we here at HFRP have been thinking about. Feel free to send in questions by using the chat pod. As a reminder, all of the resources presented today are available through the links below in the pod labeled Links to Resources. To follow a link, simply select the title, click Browse To, and it will bring you to that resource. The Teacher Handbook of the Partnership 101 booklet is available as a PDF download in a pod labeled Resource for Download. Simply click on the title and then select Download File. We have some great questions to get to, like this one. Delisa and Maria, I have a question for you. So technology can be a little bit intimidating. You talked a little bit about some of the variability within the caring adult population in terms of experience and comfort and familiarity with technology. I've been wondering about the use of apps and the kinds of access considerations we need to have for families with low income as well as families who are ELL. What has been your experience with those apps and different family populations?
Yeah, so we just started this work with apps, but as Maria mentioned, we have a long history of helping families to access technology, and there is a diverse array of access in a classroom is what we've found. As I mentioned, some families have smartphones and they know their password and they're very comfortable with how to download an app. They just need maybe a list of high-quality apps to access, and some families don't have a smartphone, and so that's why we were pretty intentional about inviting the library so that there would still be some resources that families could walk away with if they didn't have a smartphone or the ability to download apps.
I see. And what kind of feedback have you received from families and caring adults?
Great feedback. You know, they'll talk about the fact that they're busy and they are constantly in the car, on the road, at doctor's appointments, and so kids love a smartphone, and sometimes that keeps them engaged when you're trying to do other things as a parent or as a caring adult. And but kids are picky too. So they've told us that you know, it needs to be an app that's engaging and holds kids' attention over time, and not one that they're going to get bored with quickly.
I wondered what were the more popular apps, judging from responses?
I tested several of these with my own kids at home, and I know that they liked some of the PBS apps. They thought they were done really well and were high quality. We are just working with this group of parents at this particular school on some follow-up classes, so I think we have yet to kind of get some of their feedback about that. But I know if you know the apps are kind of quirky or they've got bugs and they lead a child off in a different direction, then kids tend to give up on those apps and go to a different app that functions. So making sure that the app is well tested and sort of kid-proof, that it can't take them off in a different direction.
Right. Tough crowd, kids, sometimes.
Yes, they are. They're picky consumers.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm going to turn to Therese. I have a question for you. We often hear about language and culture as potential barriers to family engagement activities, and I wondered your thoughts and or recommendations about using the booklet with different cultural and language groups.
Yeah, we've found that sometimes you have to make sure that you ask the groups if they want to use. So what we've done is we've taken our booklet and we've translated it in Spanish, Korean, and Russian, the populations that we have, families who speak those languages in the highest percentages. And we took the booklet and we introduced it, and we asked the family, friends, and neighbors of members of the community that spoke each language if they felt there would be an interest in using the booklet and if they would be willing to take the lead on it. So I believe it's very necessary to make sure you translate all materials as needed in the languages of the families that you serve, but you also want to make sure that you have a lead voice from that community that's sharing the material rather than me going and getting an interpreter to do it for me. We found that we've had greater success when we empower a person from the community that speaks that language and have them do it, because then they're able to not just translate it or interpret it, they're able to put in their culture, their priorities, the nuances and norms connected to that culture in a way that you can't if you don't speak the language.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Okay, and Maggie, can I turn to you?
Sure.
The toolkit shares tips from those who have used and created cases in their own work. I was wondering what kinds of tips did the practitioners share?
Yeah, so I think the practitioners sort of centered on, two main tips, which was, focus on a story or a situation that for you had a number of different perspectives involved, and that there was a real mismatch involved as well. But it had to be a mismatch that you could show how there was forward movement, how there's some way to build a relationship, there's some way to repair, potentially a distrust that might have occurred, or there's an opportunity to teach someone, through your story, how to use better communication skills. And I think that sort of leads into the second tip, which is that, the purpose of writing a case is to use your knowledge, your lived experience, and to make that the forefront of other people's learning and knowledge. So, you want to, when you write a case, think of not only a situation that has a number of different perspectives involved in it, but also something that, the reader really has to grapple with. The reader really needs to think about, and through that grappling will construct their own new understanding of a new way to engage with families, or potentially a new way to communicate, or a new way to develop relationships.
Okay, so looking for opportunities and using your lived knowledge. Interesting. I have a couple of other questions, general questions for all of the presenters to think about. One is, are there any suggestions or tips on how to get fathers engaged and involved? Any takers? Okay. All right, so another question that came in is, in the absence of a designated family liaison, how would the presenters recommend working within a large school and connecting with the school's parents and family base?
Well, I've noticed that, and I actually see in the chat section, Maria and Delisa beat me to it. So do you guys want to mention what you wrote in the chat box?
Hi, so this is Delisa. Yeah, so we have about 100 schools in Washoe County, and only about 50% of those schools have family liaisons. And so we do struggle with this as well, but typically what we do is look for the one person at that school that is designated or has an interest in family engagement. So sometimes it's the ELL teacher, sometimes it's an assistant principal who's been in one of our professional development workshops. It just kind of varies. Sometimes it's the front office secretary, but we look for whoever's going to connect us to the families and has an interest in family engagement.
And another way that I would like to add is, on many occasions, in addition to what Delisa said in regards to the staff member that is interested in engaging families, you'll often have a parent that's looking to lead or support the school, and in some ways we are able to get parents to do work that's directly aligned with what the school needs. But what I found is when you find a parent that's interested in engaging with the staff, they also know how to help other parents engage with the staff, and they are more likely to convince other parents that engaging with the staff is worthwhile. So I would also recommend that you might find a couple of parents that are already engaging and come from a variety of different cultural backgrounds, and encourage them to go out and use their circle of influence to bring in other parents to things that they find interesting. So if a parent says, oh, I love this particular activity or event, ask them to go and recruit other parents to come up with ideas to help the school do the kinds of things that will make parents want to participate. Sometimes we come up with ideas that stem from what the school needs, and what I found is we can get a lot more parents to attend activities and events, or even become partners in different ways if we ask them what they'd like to see happen, and then encourage and support them in taking the lead and making it happen in the school or in the community in partnership with the school.
Great, great. Thanks, Delisa and Maria, and thank you, Teresa. I also want to let our audience know that in the chat pod, there have been some great suggestions about a prior question about male involvement and getting fathers involved. So you might take a look, such as hiring a male staff member. The National PTA has some good resources, or having daddy and daughter events, just a few suggestions that are on the chat pod. Thank you, audience members, for